Well, good evening to each of you. Welcome on this nice, warm, balmy evening. A little chilly, but thanks for coming. It's good to see each of you here. This is our referendum informational meeting, and we're having 3 of these. This is the first of 3. The other 2, we have one in Beecher and one in Dunbar. And the dates for those are on a flyer that we created. So the next one is Monday, February 23rd. So if you know of anybody in town or in the district that could not come tonight, let them know about our next meeting. We're pretty much going to present the same information at every meeting. The third one is in Dunbar, at the town hall in Dunbar, and that's Monday, March 16th. So we have some of these, I think about 40 of these in the back, and it just kind of gives a synopsis of why we need to go to a referendum and just explains some things. It has also a Facebook page. If you're a Facebook or a computer user, we try to post all of the information that we talk about, that we send out to students, that we send out to the community. We try to post that there as well. So if you have a computer and want to get on Facebook, you can find us there too. But those referendum informational meetings are all on this. So please take one on your way out. We did send them home with kindergarten through 12th grade, all of our grades. Sent that home with them. So, but again, just give some basic information of what we're going to talk about tonight. I want to introduce some people to you before we get started. First of all, behind me is Diane, and I'm going to try the best I can with her name. Diane Pertzborn. Did I do that okay?
You did it great.
And Diane is from Baird Financial Services. I'm sure you've heard of Baird Financial, and they are here helping us through this and navigate through, especially our budget. They've provided us with a forecast analysis for the future, the next 5 years, what our budget would look like. And they've been a real help to us and navigating through this time and deciding what's best for our community. So, and of course, most of you know Mr. Robert Burnt, better known as Bob. He's here with us, just showing his support for, of course, the school. He spent 11 years here, did an excellent job here, and he's been a source of information for me to get to move through and navigate as I take over the school as well as district administrator. So my name's Chris Matra. I don't know if I said that at the beginning. I probably should have said that. But anyway, nice to meet you all that I haven't met. I've met some of you have not met yet. So good to meet you. And again, thanks for coming. Also, I want to just preface this right up front. We have a couple tables here with some staff from our school. So we're going to go through some information and just kind of give a data dump, I call it. Just give you as much information as we possibly can. And then afterwards, if you have any questions, we're going to just dismiss because some of you want to get going. You just want to hear the presentation and go. So you're welcome to leave. If you have any questions, we want to answer those questions. So the tables will be here, and you can go to the respective table that you want to ask questions. This over here is fiscal and technology. So Susie Johnson is our finance person, our fiscal manager at the school. And then Vince Chaher is our technology person, guru at the school as well. So if you have any financial or technology questions, because that topic will be coming up a lot, then ask them. Over at this table we have Sue Grandaw and Sobig, Bob Swanson. We have them at the table here. So if you have any questions, building and grounds, student services, daily operations of the school, you want questions answered, then go to that table. If you want to ask us a question, I'll be here. Diane will be here to answer any questions you might have about our presentations tonight. And of course, Bob Burnt will be up here too. So we want to keep this as informal as possible. I don't want this to be a formal presentation, but we just want to give you as much information as we possibly can. And as I said before, this is to inform you of what the community wants, what we feel the community wants and needs for our school, and give this information out to the community. And again, invite them to the future meetings. So I'm hoping all of our technology works correctly. And Vince Chaher, of course, set it up because he knows best. So I'm going to just start talking about our plan, what we're thinking, and give you as much information as possible. So In December, all residents received a survey. And in that survey, we asked a bunch of questions. They were mailed a paper survey, but residents could either take the paper survey, fill it out, mail it in, or take an online survey. And here I have the total responses. 157 responded by paper, 265 by internet, which is a 22% response rate, which is really good. So we're excited about getting feedback from the community. One of the questions we asked that we thought was pertinent is, what is the age of those who are taking the survey? So here we have the demographics of the age range, and I was really excited to see in the 65 plus category that we have a lot of interest in our school in that age bracket that sent the survey back. So that is really encouraging to see. Of course, 46 to 55, probably most of our parents, well, I'm getting older, I know, but I'm thinking our parents, of course, fit probably within the 26 to 55, maybe even more 26 to 45 area. But just to kind of get an idea of the age that was taken. One of the questions we asked was, how would you like to receive information about our district, about the school? What are the best methods of communication that we can give to you? And it's interesting to see, and we have it broken down by parents and non-parents. Parents, by far, would prefer email. And second to that is district mailings. So 7659. Non-parents would prefer district mailings over anything else. And second to that, Peshtigo Times, so the newspaper. So this was good information because we're going to try to hit email, district mailings, and Peshtigo Times, and even Iron Mountain Daily News, which is the next, so that we can inform the community what's happening in the school, what's going on in your school that you support. And so this was just really good information that we wanted. This is probably one of the most important slides because I think it breaks everything down. We asked, what advice would you give in regards to future budget planning? Okay, what advice? Would you consider, option one, holding a referendum to address building maintenance? So how would you support that? Because we have some building and maintenance needs that we need to address. We can see that 53% of all residents said yes, they would consider holding a referendum to address building and maintenance needs. And you can see it's broken down: staff, parents, non-parent residents. Secondly, consider holding a referendum to maintain current programs and services. This is everything from our athletic program to high Q to our tech ed program, everything, the services that we provide students. And we had staff residents, 83, parents, 63, non-parent, non-staff, 40%, with an average of all residents, 50. And then we asked about technology. Would you consider holding a referendum to help us with technology? And then you can see the numbers there, 43%. And then, of course, I'm not sure, need more information, 23. And then no, do not hold a referendum, 16%. Total, and then non-parent staff, 22%. So I thought that was a really pertinent slide, and I want to break it down one more level. And here's a specific question that we asked. We tried to be as clear as possible in our questioning, but sometimes your questions are flawed, and you want to try to just get as much information and get the feel of what the community wants. We asked, would you support maintaining the current referendum, requiring the district to further defer maintenance and cut some technology programs and services? As we know, 15 years ago, we had a levy to build the building, the new part of the building for the high school. So that was 15, 16 years ago. What year would that have been, Bob? 97. So that referendum or that levy will expire this fall. Okay? So we're asking in this question, would you be willing to continue and at the current level that we're paying now, would you be willing to support a referendum? We're still going to have to make some cuts, some major cuts, but that would help us to continue to address some things that need to be addressed, especially the programs and services. So that was the first question. Definitely yes, probably yes, 28%. Undecided, and probably no, definitely no. So the question is, does that mean our community does not want to support a referendum to maintain the current tax levy that we have right now? So we asked, of course, another question. Would you help the district address deferred maintenance, improve technology access, and maintain programs and services by supporting a referendum? Okay? Which means, we broke it down, representing an estimated average tax of $9 a month for a house that's worth a home value of $100,000, which would be, let me finish the question, value over the projected 14-15 tax level for 5 years. So would you support a non-recurring referendum to address these needs to help us, and it would be $9 a month or $108,000 a year. Okay? Increase over what the taxes look like now on your tax bill. Now, there's certain things we can't control. And if property values go up and down, that changes things. That changes that equalization value. And Diane was going to explain a lot more about that and a lot better than I can explain. But it changes. So we don't have control of some of those things. But what we can control is to exceed the revenue limit to bring in more money for our school. So that's what this question asked. We saw that definitely yes, probably yes, 54%. That was very encouraging that our community saw the needs that our school has and supports our school like our community does. Undecided? Not sure. Maybe need more information, just I'm not sure. 10% probably no. 17% definitely no. So around 27% said no. I don't think I would support that. 54% said yes. 19% said undecided. Okay? So what we want to do is provide as much valuable information to give you as much information to make a decision on this as we move forward. I'm just going to walk through some things that what we're facing. Here's what we're facing in the school. This is not a whine session saying, oh, poor us. Not at all. Here's some realities that we face as a school. Back in 2001, our general state aid was at $1.2 million in 2001. And you'll see a slide that Diane's going to present that's not going to go back to 2001. It's going to go back 10 years. Okay, 9 or 10 years, I think. And that's going to be less. It's around 650,000 10 years ago. So she's going to show you a model that's just been generally declining what we receive in general state aid. In 2014, this past year, we received $171,000 in general state aid from the state of Wisconsin. So costs go up. Money from the state goes down. That means more pressure on the taxpayer. That's basically what it means. And that's just a reality that we're facing. And again, Diane's going to explain a little bit more about that. Here's the things that we need to pay attention to that are going on at our school. We need new boilers in our elementary building, which was the old high school building, I know. But in the old part of the building, we have two boilers that are just going bad. One of them, they've put stop leak in it to try to salvage it, keep it going. You can ask so big more questions about that if you want more information. Those need to be addressed. We need total roof replacement on the elementary building or the main building, the old building. And I'm going to show some pictures in a little bit of what's happening, some leaks that we're having. Roof repairs on the new building. I say new building, but it's 15, 16 years old. So it's starting to crack and leak there as well. Replace elementary entry doors for security. And I'll show you some pictures of our doors, how they don't shut. They've got to kind of jerk them to shut, and they don't seal well. And so I'll show you some pictures there of those doors as well. Safety upgrades on a playground area. I'll show you just one picture, and it's hard to see, but basically water's collecting under every slide and every swing that we have, and it's just freezing solid. So there needs to be some grounds. We need groundwork done, and we just need to upgrade and make sure that those are safe for our kids to use. The other day, it was probably 2 weeks ago now, I went out for recess just to support the teachers. Went out there and I was watching the students. I was watching some play and was talking to them and throwing the ball back and forth. one student is hanging going, help, help, because they were coming up this little ladder and got stuck on the top. And I thought, this is not safe. Really, we need to address some of these things. So, I mean, the student was fine. I just needed to pick them up and put them on the ground. But it's just not the safest. And it's I don't know how old that playground is, but it just needs to be addressed. Mandated testing. Most of our testing is paperless. We do have a few paper tests. If you have questions about that, Vince Chaher is our DAC coordinator, our testing coordinator. But we need to address some computer and some Wi-Fi needs that we have in order to continue to take online testing that's required by the state. We don't have a choice on this. And our Wi-Fi is slow. It's old. We need to upgrade technology software. We would love to have every student access their own device. I have some pictures of what we have currently. And that's a goal of ours over the next, I don't know how many years, but it's a goal that we need to address. And then we have elementary restroom plumbing repair. So I'm going to show you a few pictures. This is our roof. This is where the roofs kind of come together. We have ice dams. Of course, they leak when this happens. And there's other leaks around, not just here, but there's other leaks that we have on this. It's just an old roof. Here's some of the damage. This is actually in Sobig's maintenance room, and it's water that's run down the wall and messing the wall up. Here's the one I love. This is upstairs, so let me assure you, students aren't walking around this. I just want to make that clear. This is upstairs in the old high school. So these are results from the roof leaking, but it needs to be addressed.
And actually, that result was from last year when we had that rough winter and the leakage coming down there on a daily basis. We were up there mopping, continually to keep the water from going on to the next floor.
This is the next picture. This, I believe this faces west. Correct, Sobig? These are the west doors that go out to the playground, and this is a great shot because we have cold air that just runs in there constantly. And the doors aren't secure. You have to jiggle them to make sure that they shut. A couple times I've done perimeter checks, and I'll go and this door is open along with this door. I think Sobig opened this door and it shut by itself, and this is all the farther it would shut. So you need to grab the panic bar and pull it to shut it, to secure it. So these are two of the three doors that we would like to address for safety updates in the building. Have you remember those? Those are kind of old. We have leaking around this whole thing. It's funny, you watch the kids step on this, they step on it, the water starts, they walk away, the water doesn't stop. They need to put their toe under it and flip it up, and then it stops. So Sobig has tried to, he's mopping up this all the time. It's old and it needs to be replaced. But it's not a small expense. And things like this get put off when your budget is tight.
And also we know, we're talking about cleanliness coming out of the bathroom. Who knows what they touch before they ever get to this phone. So, if they get to the phone.
Yeah. This is our... we call it our backup boiler, but it's the one that's running now. When it's cold, we use both boilers. Both boilers run. But when the season starts getting cold, we use the other one on the left, because this one is the one that we've put stop leak in, and it's leaking. You can see the leaks. And Sobig has done an amazing job keeping these running, coming in early, coming in on Sunday night to make sure they're still running for the school day ahead. But they're old, and we want to address this as well. And that's just a picture of the old air handler. I think that's original to the building. I'm not sure, but I would say probably late 30s, early 40s maybe. I don't know. But so we're hoping it continues to run. And as long as it continues to run, we're hoping that happens. But it's things like this that we just need to address and update. Our lovely shop teacher, Jim Fernetti, that's a great pose. But again, students use this lathe every day. And it's getting old. And Mr. Fernetti said, I don't know how long this is going to last. We're hoping it continues to last. But these are projects and things we need to look at to continue the programs and services that we offer to our students. And tech education is huge. And we need to continue to offer programs like this. He has drill presses that are old. I didn't put those pictures. I took, Mr. Burnt took some pictures, and we didn't include those in, but this is one piece of equipment that's expensive and needs to look at. This is the picture of the playground area. As you can see, just to kind of corral the kids, there was a rope put around just to kind of keep them in and tell the kids don't go beyond the rope. We would like to put a safety fence up there so when the kids go out, they're at least fenced in, keeping them in and keeping anyone else out. That's probably secondary, but we know that, again, underneath these is just solid ice. I was out there the other day and I saw a student trying to stop, and it was just zing, zing on that ice. And so we need to remove all of the posts here. I think there's landscape timbers underneath, and we need to create it so the water runs off. And again, I'll let Sobig speak to that if you have any questions about that. Here are some cuts that we've made over the last few years. Elementary grades, we've cut so that we have one teacher per grade. We're at the bare minimum, what the state requires in order for our special ed teachers and the services that we to service those students who have individualized education plans that are required by the state. We've cut teachers even to this on the secondary level, so our teachers are teaching 6, sometimes 7 preps per day. And if you're at a big school, you may teach 4 or 5 classes, and you teach the same one all day. So you prepare. They teach different classes every day, and we've had to do that over the course of the years to just because of budget crunch. We've had administrative cuts. I think it was 10 years ago. Used to have a principal and district administrator. That's been absolved into one. Outsourced busing and cleaning services to save costs. It's hard to come up with. You need a new bus, $120,000, $150,000, whatever a new bus costs to replace an old. That's money that we just don't have. So we try to keep those costs stable by outsourcing. We've co-opted our sports, almost all of our sports, trying to keep the costs down, but even more than that, trying to keep the programs going. And I think if we didn't co-op our sports, we may not have the winning sports teams that we have. And so that's another thing we've done. We've cut insurance benefits, raised deductibles, we've cut post-retirement benefits, and those are just a few things that we have cut. So we're tight, we're cinching the belt. We've been cinching the belt over the past 8 to 10 years. Just a few technology additions that we would like to address. And Mr. Chaher, if you want to pipe up and speak on some of these, please interrupt me. Our main network server needs to be replaced to the tune of thousands. Our Wi-Fi, the board knows this firsthand because we all got our devices out and our Wi-Fi went down in our library. It happened. So we had to photocopy everything, and it's coming in and out. It just can't handle the amount of traffic that we have on there. Our goal is to acquire more computers, devices in the classroom. It is much cheaper replacing. It's much cheaper than replacing and maintaining desktops to get these devices for students to have individually. You can buy a new portable device for $280, $300, whereas buying a new desktop and the screen, it's expensive. And by the way, we've been trying to use and buy refurbished computers to keep costs down. So those are just a few. And again, if you have more questions on technology, please see Mr. Chaher. I thought I'd throw this in. This is one of our servers. And if you know anything about technology, this isn't really state of the art, is it, Mr. Chaher?
The white one there is probably about 12 years old.
Right here. Yeah. So we're managing. We're keeping it afloat. These are our calf. We have a cow and a calf. So 2 carts with some computers in them, one on the high school end, one on the elementary end. So they have to sign up for them if they want to use those in their classroom. I got a picture of the 6th grade? 5th grade. 5th grade? Yeah, 5th grade. This is what we'd like to have, so they can do research at their desk, not fight for the computer lab. It's the day and the age we live in where we need computers. And even these computers are 4,
those are about
5, 6 years old. So we would like to begin replacing these as well. Here's what the referendum question is going to state. Come April 7th, this is how the resolution is going to read, and I just want to read through it because I want our residents to know when they come in to vote, this is what they're going to see on the ballot. And again, I want to break it down, but this is what it's going to look like. The initial resolution allowing the district to exceed its revenue limit of the Wisconsin statutes by $500,000 on a non-recurring basis, and again, Diane will explain some of that, annually for the following school years. For the purpose of, and just what I've talked about, replacing boilers, replacing roof, repairing flat roof on the high school building, replacing 3 entry doors in the elementary building, making safety updates, adding technology to comply with state-mandated online testing, and to maintain educational programs and services, the services that we have. So we've tried to be as clear and concise in what we're asking from the community. And again, what we're asking for, if we keep the referendum where it is, as far as how it affects the taxpayer, it would go up $109 a year per $100,000 home value. So that's what we're looking at. I have 2 more slides, but I'm going to wait for those at the very end. So I'm going to turn it over to Diane. And again, if you have questions, just remember your questions and feel free to ask us afterwards. I will do my best.
Thank you very much. Before I get started, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I work for Robert W. Baird, and before you mistrust me, I have nothing to do with selling stocks and bonds. So I have nothing to do with how your funds are performing. But I've been a school business manager for 20 years. So I worked in the business office in a couple of rural school districts. Yes, I will.
We're recording this, by the way.
We're going steady now. I've worked in a couple of rural school districts, small school districts, country school districts around Madison, and then most recently in DeForest. And that's just on the perimeter of Madison, so you know where that is. And along with school finance, I've taught classes in school finance to people who want to join this profession, get an administrative license in school finance alone. So my job tonight is to just help you understand a little bit more about the relationships, because otherwise we would have a whole semester of time together. And I'm going to tell you probably don't want to spend that much time learning about school finance. So what I hope that you're able to go away with is a better understanding of the relationships between taxes, property, revenue limits, money per pupil, the budget, and how all these things kind of come together, because that's something that you have to understand before you can actually go to the polls and make an informed decision. Some of what I'm talking about might not come clear the first time you hear it. So that's why he's offered the table here where we'll be able to talk a little bit more. So just so I understand who's in the audience, we do have some parents. I think we have a student back there. How many students? Got one? Yeah, okay. So we got some parents and we've got community members. You have some people concerned about taxes. People not concerned. Yes, we have one. Okay, so we have some people not. So we've got we have quite a mix. So even if we had 300 people here, we'd probably have the same ratio and one student in the back row. If you want to sit up here, you can join us up here too. So he doesn't want to. Okay. I'm going to keep that offer open in case you want to take a look. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, and I hope this will cover everything, and if not, we'll have a seat up here. We're going to talk about what a referendum is. We're going to talk about why Beecher-Dunbar-Pembine needs a referendum. We're going to look at the projected impact to the taxpayers, and we're also going to show you what some other school districts are experiencing, because we find misery loves company, and there's plenty of company out there in the same situation. So the current school levy, the current property taxes, when you get your bill and you see the part for the school district, it has 2 components. One of them is the revenue limit levy. So that's our general operations levy. So you have to understand that there's a general operations part of that, and then you have some Fund 39 or debt. So back in when the last referendum happened, they came to the voters and that was for construction. Yep. So that was the last time. This has been a long time since the school district has come with a referendum. here. And so if you've been in the community for the last 20 years, you probably know that this is an unusual occurrence to come and ask people for funding. So the referendum happens when a school district has to ask voters for approval. And that would be for the operations of the revenue limit within the levy, non-recurring, which is what Chris just had that slide. That's what this is called. So you're going to hear non-recurring, or else sometimes it's a recurring. Non-recurring, you'll see that on a slide. It means that $500,000 is needed in each of the next 5 years in order to make do the repairs and maintenance. Those won't all happen in the first year, as well as supplement the budget because of what's going on at the state level and what's happening locally. So that $500,000 would be in each year for 5 years and stop. Okay? That doesn't build. It's not 500 and then that 5 plus 5 for $1 million, then that 5. It's 500 in, out for 5 years to take care of those projects. Revenue limits have been around for a long time, so we've been working with them for 20 years. It is kind of unusual to have a district that's with a small student population be able to operate for 20 years and never ask for the voters. So they've been doing a good job making the cuts, as Chris just showed, with the money that we have. And there's a couple of things that have worked into that. The revenue limit formula originally had new dollars coming to the district. It was designed with new dollars coming to the district every year because costs go up. So starting back then might have been $160, and over each year, by incrementing up by the CPI every year, it got as high as around $275 per pupil. So if you had 100 students, you would multiply 275 times 100, and that's the new money for the new year. Every school district, the same thing. Every school district gets the same new dollars per pupil. The difference is some school districts are increasing in enrollment. Some school districts are decreasing in enrollment. So if you had $270 per pupil and you had 550 kids, the next year you get $270 per pupil, but you only have 520 kids because a large class size left. Your revenue goes down. But you can't always decrease your cost by that same amount. So the building the heat costs go up whether there's 500 kids in the building or whether there's 480. So your cost per unit goes up. If there isn't any new dollars per unit, I have a little guy back there, you're a unit right now. But if your cost per unit or cost per student go up because the number of students went down, you have to make up those funds somewhere else. With the revenue limit formula, you're not allowed to. Back in the day, so back before 1993, the school board would work with administration, and they would work with their teaching staff. They would work with their maintenance department. Technology was just starting to come into consideration at a school district, and then they would set their tax levy. They would set their budget by what they listed as what they want to do, and it's turned upside down since revenue limits came into play. Now we look at how much revenue we have, and then we have to build a budget off the revenue. So that's been a change. Another thing that people don't always understand is that revenue limit, that the money we're talking about that's capped, that makes up almost 90% of the budget. So 90% of the revenue is controlled with that formula. And that's on purpose. That's for tax control. That's for tax levy control across the state. And there's only about 10% of the budget that is outside that. So the 10% of the budget is local fees, sports, admissions, other money that comes into the school district that doesn't have anything to do with the tax levy. So looking at this, we're talking about the resident membership, the kids, the number of students we have, and the maximum revenue per member. You don't really have any exemptions here, but that gives the total revenue limit authority. You can't go beyond that. If there is no new dollars per pupil, the revenue limit authority stays the same. If there's fewer students, the revenue limit goes down. If there's more kids and a little more money, you have more operating money to work with the budget. And you can see here the revenue limit in 12-13, 13-14, 14-15 has been slowly increasing, because if you read the paper about the governor's proposal, we had $75 a pupil, we had $75 a pupil, we had $150 a pupil, and now they're saying zero. So what we're hearing from Madison, from the governor's proposal, is there's no new dollars per pupil. And that's important to understand, is that this plan is put together knowing that there's no new dollars per pupil. In fact, they were hoping for about $75 per pupil. And word is we're not going to get that money. So that's why looking forward in the projections, you see that it's flat. Normally there's been an incline if you looked over years. So what's happening now in 12-13 and 13-14, even with the cuts, the total expenditures has increased, the expenditures have been higher than the revenue that was brought in. So you can see, if you look at the bottom line, which is the total revenues, if that is flat, we just saw that other graph, if it's flat because our enrollment is stable, if it's flat because there's no new dollars, and expenditures are going to creep up, they just do. We know that, they just do. Health insurance costs more, heat costs more, gas costs more. There's incremental costs that just cost more in everybody's budget year to year. Filling in that gap is part of what needs to be done with this money, along with those maintenance items. So filling that gap is what would be the first priority over next year, along with those maintenance items. Okay, so how is that going to impact the taxpayer? Because that's what people really want to know. The revenue limit, we talked about that. That gets calculated every year. And what goes into, when we calculate the revenue limit, so we have this pie of this is the money, and the state comes out and says, we're willing to aid your local costs to a certain extent. Because you have so much property value per pupil, you fall in a place in the aid formula that you only have 4% of that local spending. Out of your $3 million or $3.5 million of shared cost, 4% is picked up in the state equalization aid. Some school districts, 80% of their costs are aided, but they have less property to distribute that with. The formula is an equalization aid formula, and they call it that because they want to equalize the mill rate across the state. If you look at your mill rate right now, here's 13-14, you were just under $12. 14-15, just a little higher than $12. And then if we look at it without any referendum scenario, 15-16 all the way across would be no change in the mill rate. But that also is a guesstimate, because if you have more property and the same tax levy, more property, same tax levy, mill rate's going to go down. It's just adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing. So if you have more property and you're going to have the same tax levy, but you have more property to distribute it with, your mill rate goes down. So mill rate, why we focus on it, because we want to take that and we want to take it times the value of our house and come up with our tax bill. If the property value goes down, which it has over the last couple of years, we can estimate a mill rate, but your mill rate alone will go up. Your tax bill might not go up, but your mill rate will go up. So when you compare, we're going to compare some local mill rates in just a second, but that doesn't make a comparison for what one house sells in one community to another community. But here's what it would look like if there's no referendum. If there is no referendum, and we would expect that the mill rate would actually go down. Doesn't necessarily mean the tax bill goes down, but it means the mill rate will drop. If we estimate that there's no factor in for property values. And this is happening here, this is happening right there, because remember that little orange part on the top of the bar? That last bit of debt that you have here locally for the building referendum is falling off. So the question that was put forth in the survey said, would you support, that's a green line, would you support it if we had a referendum that would allow us to keep the mill rate where it was before? So the debt part that's been being paid for 20 years, if that goes away, can we increase our revenue to the same level? That's the green line. And then the second question that was on there said, would you support a little higher on the mill rate? And that's the brown line. So we got 3 lines, 3 possibilities. If there is no referendum, but we've already decided there's going to be a referendum. The referendum fails, mill rate's at the blue line, if all the factors stay the same. If the referendum passes, we're anticipating that it'll be that higher line. But it would be $1 more per 100,000. Oops, sorry, $1 more per $100,000 home. Can I make that go back? I'm going to go back to that and skip over it. Maybe. Just a second. Let me. I'll show you. So this is, they're anticipating it'll be a $100 impact on a $100,000 home because we're talking about the difference between the green line and the brown line. Okay? It's not the difference for where the levy might drop without a referendum. The $1 per $100,000, the $100 per $100,000 home is the difference between the green line, where we are now, and the brown line is where we'd like to be. These, I don't know, I guess one thing that's more important to understand is looking at this will kind of give you an idea of what we talked about on revenue limit. So the revenue limit in 2004, 5, 6, 7, you can see it slowly climbing. And that's because we had dollars per pupil every year. We had new dollars per pupil. And then there is also a start of 4K. So what happened was we had more pupils. So kind of following how that happens, you have dollars per pupil, and then we have dollars per pupil plus more kids. And that brought the revenue limit up. But then you can see what happens in 10, 11, and 11, 12. All the school districts across the state were required to drop their budgets by around $575 per pupil. That shows you what happened historically, where all of a sudden revenue in every school district dropped. Some were able to make it up because they might have had increasing enrollment, but if you lost revenue plus lost students at that time, you were impacted harder. On the other side, as Chris was saying, this shows what happened in state aid. So state aid was at around $600,000. The state equalization aid, $600,000, dropped down to about $130,000 last year. It doesn't mean that there was less money. The revenue limit's still the revenue limit. What it means is that the state portion of that revenue limit went down and the local tax portion of that revenue limit went up. So if you've seen increasing tax bills, you've seen increasing tax bills because of revenue limit calculations and decreasing state aid. Does that make sense? So if there's only so much money that was determined by these blue bars under that revenue limit, and the other side of that equation, the who pays in the revenue limit, locally or state, the state's been reducing their share. Till now we're at 4%. So and if you looked at the school district shared costs over the course of time, the budget really has been staying quite steady. But the state's been paying less of a share of those costs. So that's one part that I think people need to understand. You can see tax rates. The black line is the state averages. There's times in 2010, 11, and 12 quite close to the state averages. As that, you can see that equalization aid dropping. You can also see where your local tax rates are going up. So there are direct relationships to what the state provides here in aid and what happens on your tax bill. So people want to know what's going on. So you'll recognize some of these are all on the 141 highway here. Beecher-Pembine, Dunbar-Pembine here, revenue limit. The composition, all of these districts, other than Niagara, you can see that a very small part of their local budget is covered by state aid. Very small part of their revenue limit is state aid. And that's because there's so much property per pupil. The way the formula works, if you'd like to go to the DPI website, they have some really good examples to show that relationship if you want to understand more about it. But other than Niagara, very low aid. Current year FTE, so you have 200, you're about mid-range for the districts up here. And the school levies, most of the levy is all their operation levy. You see those small bars of extra levy? That's going to be represented in the last slide that I show. Mill rates, current mill rates, these are mill rates from this year. You can see where people fall, the levies by type, and the value, equalized value. So Niagara has $141 million of value. You have 251. Wabeno, $790 million of value. So the more value you have per pupil, the less aid. That's the way it works in the formula. And this is what's happening. So the fact that Beecher-Dunbar-Pembine has not had a referendum is kind of surprising to me in a way, because all of these districts who you're so much alike have had to supplement their budget, have had to go to the voters, have had to ask for a referendum for operating expenses. In Florence, they had 5 years before this, plus this 5 years, where every year they had to have $1 million. That's not $1 million on top of $1 million. It's similar to what we're asking. They needed $1 million, and in 15, 16, on through 17, 18, they passed a referendum for $900,000 to show support for and not wanting to take $1 million out of a school budget. Leona, Wabeno, Wasaki, I was just there last week, meeting with the school board, talking about ahead of time about what do we do when the $675,000 is out. These things have an expiration date, just as this referendum. So, and White Lake, $200,000 for 3 years, and I personally don't know what their plan is on making up that money. Sometimes school districts do say we need $200,000 a year for 3 years, and they have a specific purpose. Technology might be it, or they have some program they want to start and they need support for that. In the case of the other ones, that's not the case. So overall, the districts around here and districts that are similar to you have had to go to voters because of this same budget crunch. One of the questions people ask is, if we get more state aid, would that help balance the budget? Could that pay for some of these things? And it's important to understand, no. It does reduce property taxes, but it doesn't add any more money because that's within the revenue limit. The revenue limit sets the amount of money, and the state aid only determines how much you pay locally and how much the state pays. So even if aid increases, it's not going to provide money for the projects. It's just going to change the tax bill. Understand that, how that goes? Okay. So that's what I have to say about this. Anybody feel a little smarter about revenue limits and aid and taxes? A little? Okay, I got a lot of nods, Chris. That's good. That's a good job. But we'll be here. It's very complicated. I know that some of this is going to be hard to repeat to others, but invite them to come to the next couple of meetings. And Chris is going to try to do a really good job of repeating all that.
And thank you. You've articulated this nice and clear.
Thank you.
Clearly for us.
I have 2 more slides, and then we're done.
I'm breaking up with you.
You're breaking up.
Yes.
Oops. Thank you. Oh boy, we're starting at the beginning. I don't want to start at the beginning, so let's go down here. Okay. I just have 2 more slides, and I want to end with this because I want to be as clear as possible as we possibly can be. What does this mean for the taxpayer? What does this mean if we propose this question and over what the taxpayer is currently paying, how will that affect what the tax is? We're not talking about the equalization. We're talking about to exceed the revenue limit. Okay? To exceed the revenue limit, we're asking, would you support a $500,000 increase over the revenue limit over the next 5 years? And it's called a non-recurring referendum. In other words, it has a 5-year life and it's done. Would you support that? This is approximately $9 a month or $108 a year increase over what taxpayers are currently paying, approximately over $100,000 home value. So that's what we're talking about. We're trying to just explain what is it going to look like. Now, what we can't control, as Diane clearly articulated, what we can't control is property value, and if that comes up or down, that changes every year that we have no control over. But what we do have control over is exceeding the revenue limit, which must go to the voter. Last, I just want to end with this. I want to end big picture. We've focused detail. Here's the big picture. Our school mission is to work as a team with students, parents, staff, and the community. And this is why we're coming to you and asking for your support and the community to promote growth and pride in learning. All students will receive the respect, encouragement, and opportunities they need to build the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to become successful contributing members of society. We love our kids. We care deeply about our students. We want to give them the educational tools for them to remain competitive in a very competitive world. Competitive educationally, technologically. It's a competitive world. We want them to be successful both in the classroom while they're here and outside the classroom in the future. And our desire is for them to have the best education possible. That's our desire. I know that's our community's desire. So when we take an aerial view, this is what we desire. But it affects the day-to-day operations and how we spend our money. We've tightened the belt. We've done our best to try to keep costs low. And so this is where we're at. So I'm just going to leave this up here because I don't want us to lose sight of what our vision is. This is our vision for our students. And so I want to end with that. So thank you so much for coming. If you have questions, please come. I know some people don't feel comfortable asking questions. So come to the tables. We'll end our meeting, informational meeting. If you want to leave, you're free to go. But if you would like to stay, please come to one of the tables and ask questions. We would love to answer any questions. Okay? Thank you so much for coming and have a great night. Thank you for everything. It was very clear, very clear.